Hello, Happy Valley. This is a one-point perspective video for a city scene. I wanted to go over the requirements for this video. So you will have at least one street with sidewalks, a minimum of 8 buildings with doors and windows on all. When I say doors, only for the buildings where I can see the bottom of the building where it meets the street with the sidewalk. You'll have at least 3 signs on your buildings, at least 2 billboards on top of your buildings. I'd like you to have a graffiti wall or doodling on one of the walls of a building. And then you're going to add your own flair to this, add details to this. So if you have a background, a lot of background, when the city drawing, we really don't see a lot of background, but if you have that, add details to this. You can have fun with this part of the assignment. Make it your own, set it apart from the video. This will be this is in the description part of the YouTube channel on this video. So I'm going to start this off with a horizon line. It is the first part of our formula. So you'll draw a nice horizontal line across your page. And it doesn't matter if you have your paper positioned and whether you have it this way or if you have it turned vertically. Either way will work. But I like to work with the horizontal. Gives us a little bit more space. And then we're going to have our vanishing point placed there in the center. We're going to make our street. So with a receding line that goes into our vanishing point. And over on the other side, place another receding line. I want to do something a little bit different than I normally do. So I want to have a street that's going to go to the right. Let's just make it a little bit more interesting. So right here, about, let's say, almost a third of the way towards my vanishing point, I'm going to make a horizontal line that goes to the right. And then up here, I'm going to make a horizontal line going to the left. So these are going to be our streets. What I'd like to do is erase this line right here in between here. I'm just going to change things up from my normal videos. And then we're going to erase this line right here. You don't have to do this. This is just makes it a little bit more interesting. And we've got the mapping out of our street right now, but let's make this look a little bit more realistic. So let's put some sidewalks in here. So we're going to take that ruler, line it back up with that vanishing point so that it's connected to the vanishing point, which is right there in the center of my page. And I'm going to make another receding line out from there. So this will be the start of my sidewalk. Same thing over here. You can see, I can see underneath my ruler, but I want to have about the same distance or so here. So I make another receding line, but I'm not going to go all the way to the end of the page. And then over this way, going to match that, make another one so that this is our sidewalk in here. And over here, I'm going to make another one. I want this to be about the same thickness of a sidewalk, so that's why I'm doing this. So I need to get rid of this extra stuff right there. And then I'm going to get rid of that little tail right here. If you are going towards the vanishing point, if we're going down the street towards the vanishing point, if we're going to make cracks in our sidewalk, we're just going to use that ruler. It's going to be parallel to the horizon line. going in the same direction as the horizon line. So here's that. I'm going to just extend that little part right there. And I'm going to draw another crack on the other side. So I'll slowly move my ruler towards that vanishing point. In between those two spaces, I'm going to draw a horizontal line. Make sure your ruler is nice and straight. Make these cracks in your sidewalk. One of the things that can happen is our ruler starts to become going one direction, and our cracks in our sidewalk start to go at an angle. When you get to a certain point, remember that as things get away from you, the viewer, things are going to become smaller when you're working with perspective. So once you get about a third of the way back, and I've got this little space here, if you can draw a horizontal line, just do little tick marks in there. It doesn't have to be perfect. Up here in the foreground, I'm going to continue over on the left-hand side. Now, if you want to do sidewalks where they go to the left and to the right, you're going to have to use that vanishing point. If you've ever seen the show Friends, where Ross is trying to get a couch upstairs and he's yelling at his friends to pivot. And that's what you'll do with this ruler, is you want to keep it positioned on that vanishing point, but you want to pivot it and move it. So every time, readjust, make sure that ruler is still on that vanishing point, and then draw. Take your time with perspective. Don't try to rush things. When you start rushing and not checking to make sure that that ruler is connected to your vanishing point, that's when things start to become awry. So always make sure, double check that you're connected in those spaces. Over here on the right-hand side, same thing. Position that ruler onto that vanishing point. Pivot. Make sure it's still located at that vanishing point. Draw your next line. We're going to make these sidewalks have a three-dimensional curve to them. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. So what we're going to do is add a receding line, a very thin one. You don't want it to be too large. The larger space, always look down here at the very end where these things meet, and you don't want there to be a large space in here. So you can see my ruler is connected to the vanishing point, and I'd say that's about as wide of a curve I'd like. And you'll notice down here towards the vanishing point that it's almost just like we're making a thicker line. But I'm going to run a third receding line, or another receding line right there, so that I can build a curve. Same thing on the other side, so we don't want it to be quite large. Just a hint of one. So we have that little area of a curve. And in between this space, you're going to want to draw straight down. You tend to want to draw at an angle. You can see you want to connect this out, and that's not really going to look correct. You want to draw straight down. So what you'll do in this space is you're going to draw your line straight down. So you're going to take that crack of that sidewalk and draw straight down. Straight down. Use your ruler if you need to. If you're having a hard time making those lines go straight down, use the ruler. It happens every time where it looks a little bit more at an angle. So if you've got one that's looking at an angle, you need to straighten it up. Use a ruler if it'll help you. And in the back, you really don't have to be perfect with it, because remember, as things get away from you, the viewer, you lose details, and it doesn't have to be that detailed. So in order to make these go to the left, you're just going to connect with that line, and you want to keep about the same amount of space there. Continue that line to the left, and then you'll go over here and do that to the right. Make sure it's nice and straight before you draw. Always double check, just like you would in math. Pull that aside. And so we have this corner right here. I'm going to just extend this down. So we would have actually probably brought that over to here. Let me go back and fix this. So I'm going to get rid of that first line I drew because that was a mistake. Over here, bring this corner down. Same thing would have happened here. Just going to kind of roll with that one. Okay. So over on the left-hand side, draw straight down. Where those cracks are, straight down. And this will be much easier for you to do because it's facing you, the viewer. Okay, so we have placed our sidewalks on there. And I was thinking of maybe doing a little crosswalk here. This is not required. I'm just going to add this in here. So what I'm going to do is line that up because I want it to be at the same position as it would have been if it was an extension of this sidewalk. So in this space, I'm going to draw this box really lightly, very lightly. Line that up with the previous, drawing a space here because this is in my street. And what I'm going to do is just like I did for the cracks of the sidewalk, I'm going to draw little horizontal lines in between the spaces. But I'm going to erase every other one. You'll see what I'm doing here in a minute. I'm just making a little, the dashes in the road for a crosswalk. So we would keep this one, erase the second one. So I'm just going to erase the sides. Keep this one, erase the fourth one. And then erase this final one. And I'll go back in and kind of darken that up a little bit. And there we have a little crosswalk. Thought that would be something new and fun to add. I was asked one time if I get tired of doing the same thing, and I do. So I try and reinvent myself ever so often when I am creating these different drawings. I do things differently every once in a while just to kind of keep it from being so mundane. So what I will do next is add the dotted lines in the middle of our street. So line your ruler up with your vanishing point, and then you're going to make the little dashes. Again, remember that when it's facing you, the viewer, or the closer it gets to you, the larger it will become. So tiny little dashes in there, and then as it gets towards you, make them bigger. And if you want to add a little bit more flair to that, we can make them three-dimensional. Remember, again, when they're further away, they're much smaller, so we don't have a lot of details in there, but you can thicken those lines. And then as you get out, they'll start to look bigger. And we can just close these off, connecting those lines with a little tiny horizontal line. Make sure it's nice and straight, both the top and the bottom. And there we go. So making this a little bit different than I normally do. Now you can continue and do a little dotted line over here. I'm just going to kind of, I think, leave it the way it is. Maybe, yeah. All right, so let's start putting on some buildings onto here. So I'm going to start over here on the left-hand side, and I love these little corners. That's where I like to start my buildings. So from that corner, let's draw up. Anything that is drawn below the horizon line, you'll see a bird's eye view. You'll be able to see the top part of the building. So if you want to be able to see the top part of your building, stop that line below the horizon line. I'm going to extend mine past that. Let me bring this down a little bit. I am zoomed in. Let me zoom back out so we can get the whole picture. All right, so I've got my vertical line up. With 1 point perspective, you draw the part of the box that you see first. So we're going to draw the part of the building that we see first. So make that top part over here. If you want, you can extend off the page so that you wouldn't have to draw the rest of the building. I'm going to show our building. So there is the top, and then bring it back down towards the sidewalk here. I will erase that part of the horizon line that's my building is going through. And then we're going to draw the part that goes towards the vanishing point. So line your ruler up with that top right-hand side. Draw towards it. Now, if you were to draw all the way to that vanishing point, you're essentially saying your building is as long as the street, which is just really too big of a building. It's not going to look right. So just draw a little bit towards that. It's a good amount. And then you can go back down towards your sidewalk. Make sure your ruler is nice and straight. If it's not, it's going to look like a weird building. It's not going to look correct. So bring that all the way down. And then get rid of that horizon line. It's good to erase that horizon line. It can kind of confuse you sometimes. So there's our first building. And we can have a building connected to that, or we can give there a little bit of a space. And I like to give a little bit of a space like it's wrapping around the building. I'm going to have another building right here. So I'm going to use that original line. I'm going to extend it up a little bit past it. Draw the top part of that building. And we've got the edge of the paper, so you really won't see more than that. And then I'm going to get rid of that horizon line. So we've drawn the part of our building that we see first. Now we're going to draw the part that goes away from us towards that vanishing point. Lining that up, that right-hand corner with the vanishing point, drawing towards it. I'm going to draw a little bit more towards it, and then back down. I don't have to draw that much because, again, this building is in front of that space. So over here, I'm going to wrap this around. I'm going to make like a tiny little alleyway. So I'm skipping this sidewalk. I'm going to make one go this way. So we've kind of got like a little bit of an alleyway here. I might erase this and see what this looks like. That's not bad. It's a thicker kind of little alleyway street. So I've erased that right there, and that gives me another corner down here, so I can use that to draw another building. So from that corner, draw a line up. Draw the part of the box or the part of the building that you see first. So you don't really use that vanishing point initially. Back down. Don't have to go all the way down because that first box I drew is there. Get rid of the horizon line that goes through my box. Now I'm going to draw towards that vanishing point. So top right hand side towards the vanishing point. Back down towards the sidewalk, making sure this is nice and straight. And then rid that horizon line. So I've already got 3 buildings placed on here. Let's move over to the right hand side and add some buildings. So right here where that corner is, I'm going to draw my line up. Draw the part of the box I see first. Back down towards that sidewalk. Checking to make sure my ruler is nice and straight. Getting rid of the horizon line. Left-hand side of this, using that vanishing point. Connect that vanishing point, draw towards it. Back down towards the sidewalk. Getting rid of the horizon line. Looking good so far. So we're about halfway through with our buildings. I'm going to add another one over here. This time, however, I want to make a little bit of an alleyway here. So I'm going to use these. So we're actually going to lose a little bit of space here, but I want to line up with the crack in this little sidewalk right here. So I'm going to line that original line up with the vanishing point. And this time I'm going to make me a little kind of back alleyway here. So I'm going to run a receding line right here, just like that. And I'm going to make this a sidewalk as well. So in between these spaces, I'm just going to make some horizontal lines. It's just like doing the sidewalks over here on the left-hand side. So I'm going to line this up, draw in between that space. These are just a little bit wider than the previous sidewalks. And so here we have right here, this tiny little spot right here is my corner. So I'm going to draw another building. We're just going to see a tiny bit of it, not much. Vertical line up. Draw the part of the box you see first, and this is where you might get confused, but this would be going to the right. So we're just drawing about 1/4 of an inch right in that space. Get rid of that horizon line our box is going through. And then now we're going to connect the top left-hand side of this to the vanishing point. And I want it to appear like this is a whole big building back here, so we will never even see the back side of it because this box right here in the front is blocking it. So I'm going to get rid of this horizon line right here. Okay, so we are almost finished with our buildings. We've got about 3 more to add, but we have all this space back in here. So what we could do is let's create another street. I think that would be something kind of fun to do. So in this space here, I'm going to choose this sidewalk right here, and I'm going to extend it around this space. And because I am going to get rid of all of this stuff right here, I want this sidewalk right here to extend. I'm going to get rid of these 3 right here. In fact, I'm going to zoom in so we can get a closer look at this. Maybe just a little bit more. There we go. So I'm going to get rid of this part right here. And I want to extend that original sidewalk around now. Connect that. And left-hand side of this is going to use that vanishing point. Give it a second, it's trying to focus. There we go. So I'm going to use that ruler with the vanishing point, and in between those spaces, extend my sidewalk. This just gives us a little bit more interest. From this corner up, I'm going to draw up. And as we are getting closer, or because we are getting closer to this vanishing point, things are going to become steeper and steeper when we use the vanishing point. Don't think it's wrong, it's correct. The closer you get to it, the steeper that angle is going to become. Get rid of the horizon line. We don't see that part of that building because it's blocked. And then we're going to go towards that vanishing point. This is what I'm talking about, where it gets really steep. We are much closer, so we don't need to really draw much. And then back down. I'm going to extend that line a little bit more. There we go. And then back down towards the sidewalk. Get rid of the horizon line in there. And we have this open space over here. I'm going to bring it over. Open space right here. I could do another building. It would just be the part of the building we see. We wouldn't be able to see anything. So I'm just going to line it up. You'll see right here, I'm lining it up with the top of this building. And I'm going to draw a little line right here. And that's a building. This space right here that's marked with the X is a building. Of course, we're not using that vanishing point because it's overlapped or layered by other buildings, but that is a building. So I've actually got 7 on here now. All I need to really do is add one more. So it is possible to add several buildings. You don't, 8 sounds like a big number, but in reality, it's really not that bad. And let's see. I'm going to make a building connected to this one right here. I'm just going to extend it, make it a little bit bigger. So I'm going to line this up with that original, go past it a little bit more, not much more. Draw the part of that box you see first. I wouldn't have to draw the back part of it because it is overlapped. Draw towards that vanishing point. Back down towards the street. And get rid of the horizon line that's in there. And it actually looks a little bit crooked. Let's fix this. I didn't check with my ruler before I made that mark. Okay, so there are our 8 buildings. What I would probably do here for mine is I'm going to do a tree. I'm going to add a little tree in the distance. So I'll do that actually right now. I'm going to zoom in for that. It's essentially the same thing. It's going to be adding a little bit something extra in here though, but I'm going to draw a little tree here. So it's in the distance. So it doesn't need to be gigantic. You don't want a tree that's going to be bigger than this building. So we'll just kind of shape it, and it's almost going to be like a little silhouette. And I would probably darken its edges a bit and shade it in. You can make it almost like it's a tree. I mean, like it's a a fence line or something, we can add another one much smaller. You still want to keep it below that. Some overlapping, adding in. And other videos I do trees and things in there, but I just thought, let's put something interesting on there. So we've got some trees. Might put one over here on the other side to help fill in that space. Maybe we have like a little park back here. Something along those lines. All right, so we have our street, we have our sidewalks, we've got our 8 buildings. We're now going to add some details to our buildings, some doors and windows and things like that. So what I'm going to do is I'll start off with a little bit of this. I'm going to do a door on this side of the building so it's facing us, the viewer. We don't have to use the vanishing point. I like to use the little cracks in the sidewalk to help me with where I want to put my doors. So make 2 little vertical lines up, connect those with a horizontal line, and in between the spaces I'm going to make double door type thing right there. We'll put the little doorknobs right there. And think about the size of your doors that you're creating. You don't want something that's, you know, super big, unless that's what you're going for. So put a window over here. Anything that you draw on this part of the box, you don't have to use that vanishing point. You just draw it as is. You can thicken some of these lines. If you want to make, you know, this is a window. Let's just say it has like a little grid in it. So I'm going to add some flair to this window. Give it some texture. Just like that. And you can always go back in and go around these things and add, you know, thicker lines, darken those lines. Really give it some details and don't just keep it so plain. But if you are drawing anything over on this side of a building, you are going to use that vanishing point. I like keeping my windows at the same, on the same line so they don't look really silly. I try to use the same line. So anyway, here is my window over on this side. So I'm going to connect my vanishing point with that, with here, and then I'm going to draw in this space. So I want to kind of keep them on the same line visually. Same thing with the bottom, line the bottom of that window up with the vanishing point, draw in this space, and then connect them with vertical lines. I pay attention to you know, where I'm placing these things. Maybe I want to make this a sign on the front of my building, or I could just make it a second window. And I think, I don't know yet, so I'm going to leave it alone. But it gives me, sky's the limit there. I want to put another door. So again, I'm lining up with that original door on the right-hand side with the vanishing point and drawing in between this space to draw my windows. And I'm going to do something interesting over here. I'm going to make an inner part to my door. So you kind of go inside. It's not necessarily on the surface of the door, the facade of the building, I mean. So in between this space, if I want to make an inner part, all I do is draw a horizontal line. So from the crack in the sidewalk, I'm just going to extend a line inside of there. And that makes like a little walk-in area. So you would walk in and your door would be somewhere back behind here, which I like. You could do a little checker floor if you want to. You could just shade this in a little bit, which is probably what I'll do. Between this space, shade that in some. So this is the kind of stuff that you're going to do. Doors, windows, they're all the same. If they're on this front part of the building, you use nothing. You don't use a vanishing point. You just draw them as is. Anything that's going away from you using that vanishing point, you'll draw using the vanishing point for the top and the bottom. And then the sides are just vertical lines down. So let's do something like that over here, except this time I want to give a little bit of texture to my building. So at the very top of here, I'm going to make kind of like a little added piece right here. And I want to extend that around the corner. So it's kind of like we have a framing or a border up top. So again, if you noticed, all I did was line that edge up with the vanishing point and continued it around the corner there. And I'm going to draw some windows, but I want this really cool, like, I don't know, textured area. I want to add some flair to this building, so I'm just going to extend this line down here. I want to keep about the same thickness, and so I'm going to erase here to add that to it, and then I'm going to put windows in between these two spaces. So I'm working on the part that's facing us, the viewer. Turn my paper. So I don't need to use that vanishing point. I'm simply just kind of drawing a box or a rectangle in between those spaces. So there's the top part of my window, and then here will be the bottom. And I connect them with vertical lines. Oops, stuck. Just giving this drawing, setting it a little bit apart from other things, making my own. So I'm going to give a little space, then I'm going to draw the next window. Trying to keep them at the same, size as their previous one, as close as I can. I could sit here and measure things out to a T, but this is just a practice drawing. If you're one of those people that is really specific and wants everything to be equal, you can actually sit here and measure the space out, but that's being a little extra. Maybe you like being extra. There's nothing wrong with that. I think I have enough space for one more, so I'm just going to go ahead and put them on here. So in between, lining those up with those previous so that they're all in a row. And I like having a clear ruler because I'm able to see through and see what I need to add, and that's why I highly suggest working with a clear ruler. And now you'll see, oh, I need to just extend this myself, and I can do that. I don't need the ruler. And so we've got some windows over here. On the left-hand side, or the right-hand side of the building, I'm going to put a door. And I probably want them at the same height of that bottom window. Back down. Extending that a little bit. Put a double door here. Let's make this one of those entrances. So all you do is just take your ruler, draw a horizontal line inside there. So it's one of those, another walkway we have to walk into the building. And we'll put a sign right here. So if I want to put a sign on my door, or I'm sorry, on my building, you can draw a space like this on your building. It's going to be more difficult if you're trying to make a sign that's attached to the building using that vanishing point. You have to get your lettering also has to be in perspective, so it can be a bit difficult. One of the things I like to do or to make a different sign is all I do is I create 2 little horizontal lines, just like this. I thicken them up, and then I make a box that's connected to them. So where they are, I just make a box connected to them, and this box is facing us, the viewer. So we're going to do a little bit of erasing in there, so it might be confusing you right now. I'm going to get rid of those parts of those buildings. This is why it's really good to draw lightly, because there's so much erasing that you do with perspective. And now I have a sign that's facing me, so I can just draw it as is. I don't have to use that vanishing point. And since most of you are beginners, I really wouldn't challenge yourself. You're going to get angry with it and get mad at it because it's not going to look to you correct. And so I just would avoid it right now. If it's something you want to do, I will show you. It's just, there we go. So this could be, I don't know, like an apartment. Maybe this is the apartments. All right. Adding windows, adding details to these buildings, making them just having some fun with it, giving them texture. And I like to put 2 little diagonal lines on there. It kind of makes it look like a window, a really big window. Lining up with that previous one. Making sure, because right now I'm at the part where I'm using that vanishing point. Connecting down. And that doesn't look like it's on level at all. There we go. Adding some details to our buildings. This one back here, just going to draw some tiny little windows. It's so far back. You could actually color those in, shade them in a bit. Make it look like there's more below it. And when you're getting so far away, back in this part. Sorry about that ding. so far here in the distance, we're so far back, we can just draw these darker windows. Again, we're not getting a lot of details in the space. Things like that. So I kind of paused the video and got a little bit ahead and added some more things to the city. And now I'm going to show you guys working on your signs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do one more kind of fancy sign. I'm going to do the back of here so you can kind of see I erased some of those trees on there, and I'm going to do a different type of sign. Very similar to this one right here. Zoom in a little bit more. But I want to make like an arrow, a pointing arrow. So I'm going to do the two little tick marks like I did previously. This time though, I'm going to extend them a little bit more. And I'm just going to draw this part. So I really wanted to do kind of a sign with an arrow that points towards the building. So pretty just much hand drawing that and erasing anything in those spaces. And then if I really want to add some flair to it, I'll put the little circles on the outside, kind of like their lights, bringing attention to this sign. So you could do a sign just like that. So I'm going to show you guys a little bit of how to write on spaces like this. So if you wanted to make a sign that is on the part of the building that's going towards the vanishing point, then you're going to want to add a middle line in between the space. Now, if you're writing, two words on here, then you're going to want to have extra lines on there. And this little line in the middle is just serving as, when you were in kindergarten and you're learning how to write, and they have those big old spaces. What it is it's just there to help you keep your letters on track. So what we'll do is write the word gym. So I want to keep it in that space, and I chose gym. It's a pretty short, easy word. So what we want to do is make the G come all the way down here, and then you would bring it up to that line and go inwards. So you're using that line as a central point to help you kind of keep that in perspective. And you're going to want to shove this stuff in here. So you don't want to write too big, but you want this to be that middle part for your Y. Back down. And now we've got to squeeze that M in here. So I'm going to make that first right-hand side, bring it down here, bring it up, and back down. So you're using that middle line to kind of help you keep it in space. And then once you've got it on there, you can go back in and erase it and draw back the parts that you erased. So we can keep it just like that. And then on these little signs, you could just put, we'll just put like apartments. And it says facing us. 1-6, apartments 1-6. And back in here, we can write the word theater. Gotta write it really tiny. And I've made another sign over here. So again, I'm going to use my ruler, lining it up. And I know you can't see the part I've zoomed in, but we'll use this. Draw a nice little middle line so we have something to help us keep our letters on track. And then in this space, we'll do a bank. So you want to keep that letters on here pretty close together. using that space. And then get rid of that middle line once you've got those letters on there. And fix it up a bit. The last little things that we're going to add to this are some billboards on top of your buildings. I mentioned that you need to have at least 2 billboards. So it's very easy because it's facing you, the viewer. Just draw some vertical lines up. These are like the stilts for the billboard signs, and you're just drawing a box facing you, the viewer. So you'll make your top, your bottom, your sides, and work on your top. Give it some information. You can have some fun with these billboards if you'd like to. We can have one way, way, way back here in the distance, so you don't really get a lot of details. You can make these in the shapes of something. So maybe you want to make like a cheeseburger and it says food, next exit, or taco. It doesn't have to necessarily be a box, but it's facing you, the viewer, so you don't really have to do anything like that. If you want a billboard facing the street, you would just do your 2 lines up and then use those vanishing points to draw your box. And this is so far in the distance, you could just kind of make it look like there's writing on it. You can just draw some lines on here, or we can draw one up here. Since this is our gym, we could do something like need exercise. Have fun with it. If you want to make them look 3-dimensional, you're just going to add some dimensions on those sides. So going towards the vanishing point, connecting down. I'm drawing this without the ruler. You guys would probably use the ruler, but all I'm doing is drawing towards the vanishing point on the side and then making it look a little bit thicker. And the last thing I want you to have on here is a doodle wall or graffiti. It could be something really tiny and small. I'm going to draw like some waves. Graffiti's really thick, so you could do words. I've done, my Instagram name in the past. I'm just going to make it look like somebody's drawn some waves on here. Just having a little bit of fun with it. Doesn't really go with this scene, but it's okay. You can put some cracks in the buildings if you want to kind of give it a little bit of extra texture on here. And then you're going to add some details to this. For mine, I'm going to keep it simple. I'm going to just put some clouds up here. So when I build them, towards the top part of this, so it's closer to the viewer, those types of things, your clouds would be much larger, bigger in size. And then as they get away from us, they're going to become even smaller. This, you could do a night scene, where you could add some shading to it and darken it up. Remember, as we're getting towards that vanishing point, these clouds are going to become smaller. This just kind of gives your drawing a little bit of added texture, and it makes it a little bit more interesting. When I make clouds, I just make random little lines. I kind of keep them flat at the bottom. My lines don't really connect. And This just gives it. I've had students, I know I've told you before, but I've had students who put like a UFO sucking up a cow, or you could do something interesting like that, or you can do a little airplane in the sky, something like that. But here we go. Really fill that space up and give it some interest. But here's our city drawing. So remember, you have to have at least one street with sidewalks. You need to have 8 buildings. You need to have at least 3 signs on your buildings. We've got 4 on this one. You need to have a minimum of 2 billboards. They can be really far away. You can have them up closer. You need to have some kind of graffiti, like somebody's drawn on one of your walls somewhere. And then added interest to this. Put some clouds in the sky. Put some trees on the ground. You know, you could put stop signs, anything like that. You could have a little bit of fun with it. So here you go. I hope this helps. Talk to you later.